Yar! Avast me, space mateys! The following podcast contains space spoilers for treasure planets. You have been space warned!
I've been space-warned, and also hello, it is I, Glenjamin Button, along with your matey and co-captain, Miguel Magusto.
Yar! How you doing, Glenn?
Oh, dear God, how did they talk like that back then? In space, too, nonetheless.
I'm assuming they had no choice, and it probably had a lot to do with smoking and drinking. And stuff like that, and
probably
also
the scurvy
maybe
too.
Some scurvy, possibly regional dialects and all that. So
and diarrhea,
definitely diarrhea.
Yeah,
diarrhea is half the battle. Diarrhea aside, what movies have you watched in the past week,
Mike? It's been a crazy week for me in movies. I've watched so many movies, 3 to be exact. One with you.
Yeah.
One you lent to me, and the last one you were given to by the wheel of random. So we watched together Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. There's a review up on the YouTubes for that. I don't want to talk about it, so that's as far as I'll go. People are really enjoying it. I'm not surprised. And then there's
good for them.
People who aren't. And then I got to see the movie that you lent me called After Yang with Colin Farrell, Jodie Turner-Smith, and many more. I had expectations for this movie that I thought it was going to be fucking amazing. Not that it wasn't good. I just let myself down in a way.
Yeah. I kind of had a similar experience.
It was a lot more grounded. It was a lot more... without sounding rude, emotionless.
Yeah.
But like human at the same time. But yeah, it was a good film. Definitely a good like sit down and watch if you've got the time for it and just chilling on your day off like I did.
Yeah.
And it was a delight to see Colin Farrell have a mustache. God, he can rock that thing.
Without giving too much away, I think it would have been benefited if it padded the beginning a little bit more. Like it kind of just jumps into the whole plot,
into it,
and then expects you to be, essentially this is the plot, so it's not giving too much away. It's about this family that has a robot that looks very human. The robot feels like one of the family, kind of like Bicentennial Man, but not weird. And so. The robot starts...
That's actually a really good description.
Yeah. The robot starts dying. And the entire movie's about grief and all that. But we're not given enough in the beginning to really feel attached to this robot. So beyond feeling, oh, I heard your grandfather died. It's kind of that feeling throughout the whole movie, for the audience at least.
Yeah.
In my opinion. It's like, oh man, that's a shame. But I feel like if they added stuff in the beginning, it could have been a real good gut punch. But it wasn't. You're
not shown the amount of care that was in between the family. You're just shown it.
Yeah.
Just like in memories and stuff. So it's not like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
I get it. I enjoy, but at the same time, I wish I could have experienced it versus just watching it happen through what was. I mean, overall, it was still a good film. I still gave it like a 3.5.
It's still one of the best, most unique sci-fi movies out there right now, from last year at least. But I feel like it could have been a lot more. Yeah.
And then finally, I watched Treasure Planet, which we shall talk about in just a minute. But Mike, dear Lord, what did you watch?
I watched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 movies, and started the 12th, but I'll get to that next week. The first one I watched on the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta. Ooh. Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. Come on, what's mine? Yeah, it's that movie. It's about disco and this guy that likes disco, and he's kind of a piece of shit, but he's really good at dancing.
He's got
disco.
a good butt chin, though.
Yeah. It didn't age well, but it had more depth than I thought it would.
Okay.
It's an apologist for how terrible the characters are when it shouldn't be, which is why it hasn't aged well. But it's more than just, like your typical dance movie where it's like, this guy likes dancing, let's watch him dance. There's actually character depth to it. It's just, I wish the 70s weren't such a godless time.
Cocaine.
I'm kidding, of course. Cocaine, for sure. Absolutely. A little bit of rape,
Just a really sad amount.
Yes. One amount is sad amount.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. So let's just be clear about that. Yeah. Here at KFR, we believe rape is bad.
And not good.
And not good. Definitely not good. Anyway, Jesus Christ.
Off the rails. What's the next movie, Mike?
So the next two movies I watched. So a few weeks ago, I watched the Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I finally finished the trilogy with the girl who played with fire and the girl who kicked the hornet's nest. Really, really well-rounded trilogy. Kind of wish we got, maybe not these exact movies, especially since the first one is the exact same as the first Swedish film. Yeah. But I kind of wish we got a well-rounded Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy in the U.S.
Yeah, I loved that movie.
So did I. And the first, have you seen the Swedish version?
I have not yet. I've seen the most recent one, but I haven't seen the first two.
Okay. Wait, so you've seen Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, or you've seen the one with Claire Foy?
The Hornet's Nest one.
Okay, from 2009. Okay. And
oh wait, didn't they just release one in theaters like really recently? Yeah,
the Girl in the Spider Web or something like that. That's the one with Claire Foy. That was the another U.S. one, or at least English language one. But this trilogy is really well rounded. These last two really kick it off well, or end it well rather. The first Swedish one is pretty much, or rather the U.S. version is pretty much like the first Swedish one, almost completely. So it would have been cool if they were able to continue it, but we know how that ended. Then I watched Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We have a review for that online. Glad other people are enjoying it, but you can see our thoughts on the YouTubes.
It's there.
There's thoughts, and we put them on video. Then I watched a movie directed by Robin Wright and starring Robin Wright called Land. And Demian Bashir is also in it. It's essentially this grieving woman who moves to Wyoming to escape her grief and kind of lives off the land, and she meets this guy that helps her live off the land. And surprisingly and happily, it is not a romance film. Judging by the trailer, I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't, and I really appreciated that. So, yeah. But the movie overall is okay. I was kind of hoping for more. But there you go. Then I watched Treasure Planet. We'll get into that in a minute. Then for the Oscar Best Pictures, Caitlin and I went to see Women Talking at Bryn Mawr Film Institute. Finally got to see that monologue from Claire Foy.
Oh, yeah.
Friend of the podcast, Claire Foy. Not really. We just talked about her earlier. So for those of you who heard the episode after we first watched Women Talking, I usually am pretty good at picking when my bathroom break should be, but then I missed the best monologue ever. Why am I slurring my speech like I'm drunk? The best monologue ever from Claire Foy and Women Talking, and then I finally got to see it. So fucking good. Glenn really did not sell it as much as I thought he would have.
I turned to you and said, you just missed a pretty good fucking performance.
Yeah, but it was better than I thought it was going to be.
And then I shoved some Raisinets in my mouth.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. Then I watched, continuing through my Ingmar Bergman collection, I watched the American theatrical release of Scenes from a Marriage. For those of you who might remember, I watched the miniseries, the Swedish miniseries Scenes from a Marriage from 1973. It was released in theaters in 1974 in the United States. I watched that version. It's the same version, but shorter. Like, it's pretty much exactly the same, but shorter. Obviously, there's certain parts cut out. So I don't know why it was included in this collection as a separate entity and also put right after, because it's a Criterion collection.
Got it.
So it's the way they do collections is they give you like a suggested viewing order. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to do that in the order that they suggest. Only they have this miniseries followed immediately by the U.S. theatrical version, which is still fucking long, just not 5 hours long.
Holy hell.
I really don't know why they put it back to back, but I'm glad it's out of the way finally.
Yeah.
There we go. Then for the Oscar Best Pictures, Caitlin and I watched The Fablemans. Rewatch for me, first time for her. She feels the same way I do, where it's okay and would have been better if it just focused on the movie stuff and not so much the family stuff.
I think she's starting to beat me on catching up to the Oscar stuff.
She really is. Then on the Ingmar Bergman collection that I have, I watched Saraband, which is a sequel to Scenes from a Marriage, made, 30 years later? 73 and 2003. Yeah, it's like one of Ingmar Bergman's last movies he made. I enjoy this more than Scenes from a Marriage. It's kind of like an old divorced couple meets up when one of them is kind of decrepit. And it is way more
just like me.
Yeah, it's way more interesting than Scenes from a Marriage. So I actually really enjoyed it. Then with my baby child, I finished the trilogy of Cars 3. I watched Cars 3 with him.
You madman.
So surprisingly, and I was not expecting this at all, Cars 3 is my favorite out of the trilogy.
I heard 2 is just genuinely not liked, and then the first 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 are just the golden goose.
Yeah, well, the problem with 2 is that it focuses on Tow Mater more than it does Lightning McQueen, which is fine, but don't make it a sequel to Lightning McQueen's movie. The thing I like about Cars 2 is just like a James Bond movie, but with cars. Yeah. But it also doesn't do that well enough to enjoy. Cars 3 is just kind of more of the same with like a washed up race car. But, I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it way more than 1 or 2. Yeah. And which is weird because on Letterboxd it has the lowest rating out of all of them, so I was expecting to absolutely hate it. But I enjoyed it for the most part. But that's all I watched. So, let's get into Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet.
In this science fiction rendering of the classic novel Treasure Island, Jim Hawkins is a rebellious teen seen by the world as an aimless slacker. After he receives a map from a dying pirate, he embarks on an odyssey across the universe to find the legendary Treasure Planet. Directed by Ron Clements and John Musker, it is based on the novel by Robert Louis Stevenson, written by Ron Clements and John Musker, starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Emma Thompson, Martin Short, Roscoe Lee Brown. Who else we got in there? We got Tony Jay is in there, Brian Murray is in there, David Hyde Pierce, Michael Wincott, and good old Squidward himself, Roger Bumpass. I was happy to see his lovely face on the IMDb page, and if you really listen, you can tell that his character is him. There's just a hint of Squidward in there.
The early comings.
So this, of course, was on my giant list of movies that are numbered, and then Glenn picks a number. You know, it's on my list. I didn't pick it, but I also picked it. And the main reason I put it on that list, and I believe you have more to discuss about that, is that it is infamously a flop, but also considered one of Disney's better films from the early 2000s. So that in itself was interesting enough. I didn't know, however, that Disney kind of sabotaged this movie.
Big time.
Like purposefully.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that they purposefully released it the same weekend as Harry Potter, essentially to kill 2D animation for good.
Oh, Jesus. These bastards.
Granted, I'm just reading based on trivia. I don't know how true that is. I'm not surprised if they were trying to move away from 2D animation because, you know, they can lay off a bunch of people that way. And Disney, if we know anything about Disney, they love laying people off.
They do.
So, you know, that kind of made me sad while watching this. Is, you know, 2D animation, I feel like, is underappreciated. Obviously, with anime, a lot of anime is 2D animation, but it's not quite the same as this style.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, if you like Treasure Island, I feel like you're going to like this movie. It has a lot of fun things going on about it. In space.
Big time. It's all there in space.
In space.
Interstellar, even.
Yes.
But yeah, this is like a big old combo pack duo with Atlantis and just like the underdogs, the little uncut gems, if you will, of the underrated movies from Disney.
Yeah.
And somehow I've gone so long without fully watching this movie. I've seen very small bits as a wee little boy, small child, man. I've definitely seen Atlantis, but never got around to ever actually watching this. So much so Atlantis, that for some reason, for so long, I thought Matt Damon was the main character for this. And I can't explain to you why, and so don't ask. That's all I can say. But yeah, this movie, like you were saying earlier, this movie was absolutely sabotaged from, you know, pretty much get-go. It had been in like production hell for as long as possible, dating all the way back to the Black Cauldron, which when did that come out? 1985.
80 something, yeah.
Yeah, and so the two directors, John Musker and Ron Clements, worked on Black Cauldron, and then it basically flopped really hard. Like it was like the animation movie that kind of killed Disney there, and then the CEO basically put them on The Great Mouse Detective, which kind of got them back on track a little bit. It gave them a little warm welcome back into the animation, like people loving them. And then, like they kept pitching this idea of, you know, Treasure Planet, it's Treasure Island, but, you know, fucking in space and shit. Like literally
that's the exact
verbatim.
way
I watched a recording. They both said it at the same time. They even jinxed and got a soda, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy. But they kept pitching ever since like Black Cauldron. They kept pitching this Treasure Island or Treasure Planet movie, and the CEO just kept knocking them down and just putting them on a different project. So like the next one would be The Little Mermaid after The Great Mouse Detective, which, as everybody knows, was a huge fucking movie.
Yeah.
And then so they were like, all right, we did Little Mermaid. Can we do something else? Like, you know, Treasure Planet? And they were like, oh yeah, that's a great idea if we don't do it, and we'll put you on Aladdin next. And they're like, oh, fuck, okay. So they did Aladdin, and they're like, hey, remember that movie we were talking about? Shit. And then they did like a little layup, and they're like, maybe he's got it. CEO fucking swaps it away from the basket and says, no, you're moving on to Hercules next. And after they did, or when they were doing Hercules, they're like, we're going to do Hercules, but if we do Hercules, we have to do Treasure Planet. Like, we're not, like, that's just it. So they eventually came to that little conclusion. So after over a 10-year little fucking spitball for this movie to be made, they finally were able to make it. And then it just was not advertised in the slightest. Like, I didn't even know it was a movie that was going to be out. I mean, granted, I was a small child, but I didn't even know it was a movie until, like, I went to my cousin's house and it was on DVD. Like, they had it. I was like, or VHS. I was like, oh, what is that? And I never even watched it then. Like, it was just advertised to hell. These poor guys never got a chance to actually do it. And then when they did, it flopped like hell in theaters. Yeah. And then it never even, it was supposedly supposed to get a sequel. I sent this to you. It was supposed to get a sequel with Willem Dafoe being like the main bad guy, which here at KFR, we do love our Willem Dafoe.
Oh, we love him.
Sometimes he's our Willem Defriend, but this would have been great for him in this. And it flopped, and then they were just like, no, we're moving on. Fuck you guys for even doing that, even though it was our fault it flopped so hard. And here we are, down the road in 2023, 20 years after the movies come out.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I believe Michael Eisner was the CEO of Disney during pretty much that entire thing. Michael Eisner, granted, I'm not a huge Disney head, but my understanding is that he was hated by Disney fans altogether. And kind of, while at the helm at like the 90s resurgence of Disney, also made a lot of decisions that made people hate him. Again, I'm just going off of memory of his reputation in my head. I don't know how true that is. But you know, Treasure Planet is one of those great classic movies, and all the pitch really needs to be, if James Cameron can walk into a studio for the pitch of Aliens and write Alien on the board and then look at the people and then put an S, Treasure Island in space should be enough. Because that is what James Cameron did for the Aliens pitch, by the way.
It should be super easy.
It should be super easy. Yeah.
Who are you?
You're trying to get all these classic things redone. This Hamlet made into Lion King and all that shit. I know they didn't work on Lion King, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Of course, they've worked on classics altogether. Yeah, I feel like this did not get the attention it deserved from Disney, and it's very clear that that is the case. But overall, I think it is a pretty good, adaptation of Treasure Island. It's I read an abridged version of Treasure Island when I was a kid, and then of course I watched Muppet Treasures Island, which is the end all be all of Treasure Island movies. And from what I know, this is actually, even though it's in space, is pretty accurate to what the source material is. Assuming that they just interchange whirlpools for black holes and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it for the most part. I think it kind of, the hype around its betrayal in Disney and everything kind of got me hyped up a little bit too much. But I did enjoy it for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it's a good film, and if it would have been advertised like off riff and just got a fair footing, it probably would be a classic.
Yeah,
but it after all the underdog hype about it, now it's like, oh well, I thought it was going to be a little bit better, but it's still really fucking good regardless. Like the animation's like really good.
Yeah, honestly, it's like a combination of 2D and 3D animation too.
Yeah,
like the characters are all 2D, and then some of the environment they're interacting with is 3D. So it's kind of a shame that we didn't get more movies like this with a combination of 2D and 3D. It kind of just went directly from strictly 2D animation to strictly 3D animation. It would have been nice to have a little grace period there.
Yeah. Also, kind of backtracking just a little bit, it really shows how much they kind of still don't care about this movie, but immediately after watching this, they threw Strange World advertisement in my face. Like I wanted to see that over rewatching Treasure Planet over again. Yeah. It was like, oh, you just watched Treasure Planet, right? We got a movie for you.
Yeah,
I already watched it. Get that out of my fucking face.
And that movie's significantly worse than this.
Yep.
But I kind of forgot that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in this. And he does not sound like himself at all in this. Granted, he's younger. I think he's like 20 or something.
Yeah, he was 20 in this.
But he
sounds like a baby.
Yeah, if I didn't know better and you told me it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I would think you were lying. And a lot of people also are hating on Martin Short as Ben.
I get it, but there's a character in there that definitely did not need to fucking be in there, and it wasn't Ben. It was... It was the farting, tooting monster.
Oh, yeah.
That did not need to be in that movie. But Ben, I could see him being annoying, but from what I know, there is a character in Treasure Island, the original movie, that was literally Ben, just a robot in this one.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in Muppet Treasure Island is played by Gonzo. I could be wrong. But yeah, I thought I was reading Letterboxd reviews trying to find like a really good one, and
the only big problem, he was loud, but our only problem is that he's introduced almost at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Other than him being loud, he's perfectly fine for the most part.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the little aggression towards the guy.
Kids these days just don't appreciate Martin Short and all of his
For
genius.
real.
It's like they haven't even seen Clifford, the movie where he's a grown man and plays a child.
Yeah, what the hell?
The most underrated fucking movie in the world is Clifford, and I will fight. No, that's not true. It's Cable Guy, followed by Clifford. And then I will fight anyone that disagrees and thinks Clifford's an actual bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
I believe
too.
Yeah, I believe Roger Ebert thinks it's a bad movie. I will dig up his bones and fight his bones if I have to. Clifford is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Anyway, but this had a lot of emotional beats I wasn't really expecting. I feel like it's probably the best, from what I've seen, the best showing of why John Silver kind of befriends Jim Hawkins and kind of turns his back on his crew in order to help Jim Hawkins. In the rest, maybe it's just because it's Tim Curry, especially in Muppet Treasure Island, that you never really trust John Silver, even when he is being really nice to Jim Hawkins. And in this, you feel like when he is being bad and doing bad things, he's only doing it because it's expected of him, and he doesn't really want to do it. And I think Brian Murray did a great job with his vocal performance to get that through, and of course the animation along with that, and the shit was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and then Mr. Arrow when the first mate of Captain Amelia dies. That was a really surprisingly powerful moment too.
That was super fucked up, man.
Yeah,
I wasn't ready for all that.
Scroot, played by Michael Wincott, killed a Mr. Arrow. No wonder the alien in Nope ate him. That's too deep of a cut?
There. Yeah. Holy shit.
No, but it's just something I wasn't really expecting. In the Muppets one, I'm sorry, it's in my nature. I'm going to compare it to Muppets Treasure Island. In the Muppets one, they go for jokes over emotion, so it was just kind of nice to see the emotional beats, given respect in this.
No, it was great. Just the little bonded, or not bondage. Holy shit, the bond that they the bond that they grew together. Just as old crewmates, and just kind of he didn't have that fatherly figure, so he was looking up to good old John Silver as that guy who's teaching him his ways that a father was not there for. So it was cool to see that. The one thing I didn't care for was the little montage with what sounded like Goo Goo Dolls or some shit.
Oh, it was 100% Goo Goo Dolls.
Was it? Actually,
yeah.
Holy shit. That took me out of it just a little bit. Disney movies are usually like the character singing it, so it just took me out when Goo Goo Dolls. I don't want the world to see me.
And I don't think that they'd understand.
Where is my fucking dad? Anything like that. But that took me out of it for a second. But overall, like, just the relationship building there.
Yeah.
I wish the mom was a little bit more in the beginning, like another 5 minutes or so. Just because she kind of came and went very fast, and then she popped back up. But no, everything was great. There was great side characters. There was absolute betrayal. I can see why people are fucking pissed at Disney for just letting this flop, because it was good. It deserved better.
And they could
deserved a sequel with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, definitely. They could have easily, maybe not easily, but they could have trained 2D animators to become 3D animators. Like, it's not like they had to let him go. But I know that costs money and time, and Disney hates spending money and time.
Yeah, the House of Mouse doesn't care.
No, it does not. But, other than the Goo Goo Dolls, this movie would be timeless. Like, 2D animation aside, being based off of a classic novel aside, Goo Goo Dolls is really the only thing that makes this a time capsule.
The end credit song was fine. It was just the montage part in the middle.
And I don't even hate the Goo Goo Dolls. It's just like, what is it doing in a movie about space? That's what I want to know.
They were just hot at the time. It was the 2000s.
Yeah, it was really it just kind of put a halt on everything. But I do love that one Goo Goo Dolls song. Not the one that's in this movie, but the one we were just singing. Yeah, Iris.
Yeah.
I don't give a heck what people say about that song.
It's a good fucking film. It's a song. Goddamn.
But other than the Goo Goo Dolls, like if it and obviously 2D animation because it is old, but it's not what makes it feel old. It is relatively timeless,
There's also a little theme that I'm sure a million other reviewers have talked about. That he's this very like dark character in the beginning, Jim Hawkins, like clothes aesthetic wise, everything, and then like he'll slowly grow to like lighter tones. Like in the middle of the movie, it was all tans, and like then at the end, it was like almost all whites. It was pretty cool to see. He lost the ponytail. I was a little bit sad about that. The little rat tail. I was like, man, this man's looking like a little Padawan, a little Jedi man. Now it's gone. Guy became a full-fledged master.
One of the Letterboxd reviews I saw was just, should I get a rat tail?
Answer is no.
Yeah, no one should get a rat tail. Also, no one should get mullets, but,
I just saw a wicked one yesterday, actually.
Some people can pull off mullets, but if you're listening to this thinking, should I get a mullet? It's not you.
It's not.
The people who can pull off mullets already have mullets, and not even all the people who have mullets can pull off mullets. So, yeah.
You got to be very good looking to pull that shit off.
Yeah. And then another Letterboxd review I saw was straight to jail for the people who decided to make a sexy cat captain.
Lock me up.
Yeah, lock. But yeah, I really, enjoy this for the most part. I still think Muppets Treasure Island has a leg up on it. But this pleasantly surprised me. And
there's one thing I want to say that now this is a little hot take that I feel like every animated movie that was around this time has a character that will always sound like Kevin Kline. And I can't get it out of my head.
This was David Hyde Pierce. Yeah, David Hyde Pierce was this one.
It's usually always a different character. Like, it's always either Kenneth Branagh as well, but, those two were, like, in a bunch of other movies together, so, like, I can't knock that one. But it's always a character in these movies where it sounds like Kevin Kline, and it's not.
Yeah.
And then I get sad, but then I'm like, oh, that other guy's getting work. Good for him.
As soon as David Hyde Pierce started talking, he plays Dr. Doppler, for those of you who don't know. I was like, is that Kevin Kline? And then I looked it up. It was not Kevin Kline.
It was not indeed.
You are not crazy. You're 100% correct.
I'm curious at a certain point if people are like, you know what Kenneth Kline sounds like, right? They're like, yeah, please do it or you don't get paid. That's why I'm curious if that's how that goes down. He's like, all right.
Well, I mean, David Hyde Pierce just sounds like that. He plays, I want to say he plays the praying mantis in Bug's Life. Yeah. Plays Slim. No, sorry, that's the stick bug. He plays the stick bug in A Bug's Life.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And then he also is the voice of the aquatic creature who Doug Jones plays in Hellboy 1 and 2, the Guillermo del Toro one. But he didn't take credit for that because he thought Doug Jones did such a good job. He didn't want to take credit just for doing the voice.
Yeah.
Which, David Hyde Pierce,
real G. He should get credit for that, though.
Real OG for doing that, recognizing the people in makeup. But yeah, he just kind of sounds like Kevin Kline. Him and Kevin Kline have very similar tones in their voice. A little bit of an aside, there was a really awesome independent horror movie I watched with David Hyde Pierce. I'm trying to see if I can find it because I do want to recommend it to people. It's nothing mind-blowing or anything, but like I watched it. It's called A Perfect Host, and it's just like this kind of dark comedy thriller.
Okay.
I don't remember too much about it, but it takes place in the house. He's kind of like a rich dude. And just really good, really well done. So I suggest people check out The Perfect Host.
Real good.
What they've had here. Yeah, apparently it's on HBO Max.
Oh, there we go. Nice.
But yeah, we're not talking about that. we're talking about Treasure Planet, and I'm kind of done talking about Treasure Planet unless you have something else to say.
I think for the most part, I hit all of the letters there.
All the letters, all the bullets, all the...
The bing bada bones.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see why it's an underrated movie. I could see why people are so upset about it not being recognized more to this day. It was overall.
If I saw it when it first came out, I would have loved it a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think being a 33-year-old man when I first see it took away some of the magic of it.
Some of the shock factor. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that does it for our review for Treasure Planet. That brings us to our judgment. As always, it needs to be a unanimous decision whether or not it goes in the KFR shelf for the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden. This was my pick, my assignment, my little movie here, so I get to go first. If it weren't for the backstory of it and the amount that it was just stabbed in the back and pushed aside by Disney, I would say... No, it's a good movie. It's a fine movie.
Good movie. If it's a weird one because if it got its representation from the get go, it probably wouldn't. You're right.
Yeah,
but
I think it probably would have just fallen to the wayside to other. Other late '90s, early 2000s. I don't think this is better than Hercules or Hunchback of Notre Dame or anything. Those other forgotten ones, but because it was pushed aside. I kind of want to put it on the shelf just to say fuck you to Disney.
I understand completely.
I think it's good enough. I think it's an example of how financial flops do not necessarily mean it's a bad movie.
And how you can make 2D and 3D work together.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of come back a little bit with Mitchells and the Machines, where I don't know what the exact process is, but aesthetically it looks like 2D on 3D.
Yeah.
But it's probably all 3D animation. But because... Disney did that, and I think it's a great example that money isn't everything when it comes to film.
Yeah,
I will say yes, it does go on the shelf,
especially when you have unlimited money.
Yeah,
Disney.
Really. To the point where in the 90s they didn't need to advertise anything but Disney on Disney Channel.
Yep.
They're paying themselves to advertise themselves, so that's just a circle of money.
Money.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me as well, I believe it goes on the shelf. I think it was super underrated and deserved more. But like I said a second ago, if it did get more recognition back then, it probably would have fell wayside compared to Aladdin and all those other ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they are, I will say, a little bit better, but it is so good at the same time. So yeah, yes, yay for me as well.
Yes.
Yay.
So Treasure Planet does go on the KFR shelf with the likes of Apostle and Handmaiden, and probably Muppet Treasure Island if we ever watch that. If you haven't seen Muppet Treasure Island, do yourself a favor and do.
I'm going to do myself a favor then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our assignment for Glen Week next week. That's the second time I did that.
You're
Glen
having
Week.
a fun right now. You're
I
having
am having a fun. Can you tell I'm a sleep-deprived father? It just keeps getting worse for some reason. Anyway.
Damn it, baby boy.
Glenn, it is your turn to pick a movie. What are we watching?
I'm going to let you pick heads or tails.
Oh, tails.
Heads. All right, we are watching a movie that you did just recently watch, sadly, but I had never seen. So, we are going to watch Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't seen it, I'm glad we're watching this because...
Yeah, I had not seen it. Obviously, I saw snippets, but it was never the full movie. And I house sit your house sometimes, and I'm pretty sure you haven't, and I still didn't watch it.
Every single time that you house sit my house, it is one of the movies you pull out of the shelf. It's you always leave kind of pull them out halfway. And
the problem is that it's Wes Anderson, so I have to be in the mood for him. And if I'm not, I'm just not going to watch it.
I used to feel that way until I watched Darjeeling Limited, and for some reason, after watching that, it just clicked in my head, and now I'm always in the mood for Wes Anderson. Not that I think you have to do that. It's just I completely understand people who need to be in the mood to watch his stuff.
I think his films are fantastic, Mr. Folks. But They are a different breed of movie. So,
Yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, made in 2009. It is PG. An urbane fox cannot resist returning to his farm-raiding ways, and then must help his community survive the farmer's retaliation.
Yes.
Directed by director Wes Anderson, written by Ronald Dahl, is from the book, and then Wes Anderson.
Roald Dahl.
Oh, I thought there was an N in there. I'm such an idiot.
I'm sure you're not the first person to do that.
And then obviously written for screen by Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach. And then stars George Clooney. Now I'm having strokes. Here we go. George Clooney, Meryl Streep, Bill Murray, Jason Schwartzman. He's like in all of his movies. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
He reuses a lot of his actors, which is great for them. We got Wallace Wolodarski, Eric Chase Anderson, Owen Wilson, Willem Dafoe, Jarvis Cocker, Wes Anderson himself as well. And that is going to be on HBO, Hulu, Roku, Amazon, all premium subscriptions. And then obviously everywhere else is renting. So good luck with that one.
And so it begins.
Welcome to the fantastic world of Mr. Fox.
Woo! Should we dance?
Woo! His life is fantastic.
Pure wild animal craziness.
His wife is fantastic.
If what I think is happening, it better not be.
His neighbors, not so fantastic.
This is Bogus, Bunce, and Bean, three of the meanest, nastiest, ugliest farmers in his valley.
What was that? They're digging us out.
But they're about to discover
Oh, Foxy. Is help on the way?
he's one fox
I've got an idea.
you can't outfox.
Mole, what do you got?
I can see in the dark.
We can use that. Rabbit, I'm fast. Badger.
Demolitions expert.
What? Since when? Here, put these bandit hats on.
I don't have a bandit hat, but I modified this tube sock. We look good. Yeah.
So do you want to know how ridiculously detailed my memory is when it comes to times I watch movies? Mm-hmm. So I watched this movie for the first time Thanksgiving Day 2009.
Okay.
Colin
Ridiculous.
Colin and I were driving to the theater, the Downingtown Regal Theater, and it was the first time I almost hit a deer while driving.
Oh, dear Lord.
So I stopped right in front of the car, or right in front of the deer, rather, and the deer got spooked still, even though I was stopped, and jumped, and its hind legs landed on the hood of my car. And it got away fine and everything, but like...
They are dumbasses.
Yeah. Anytime I think of Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think of that time I almost hit a deer.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's surviving out there in the wilderness
deer
very
hit
well.
me.
Yeah, he's like, fuck you, guy.
Yeah. But yeah, like I have ridiculous memories about movies like that. Like I can, if I like the movie, I probably remember when and where, what happened an hour before and after. Mm-hmm. So I'm weird. Anyway, Fantastic Mr. Fox is our assignment for next week. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, you can check out our website at www.KeystoneFilmReview.com. On Instagram, we are Keystone_Film_Review. Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, Keystone Film Review. And on Letterboxd, I am Mike, KFR.
And I'm Glen, KFR.
And that will do it until next week when we get fantastic and talk about Mr. Fox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.